Welcome back to Apolitical. Thanks so much to everyone who's been listening and subscribing to the show. I greatly appreciate it. Elections are coming up fast, so we are back with another city council candidate. Today, we are speaking with Byron Amos. Mr. Amos is a longtime local politician, and this is not his first time running for the District 3 council seat. He first ran for the job back in 2001, losing to the dearly departed Ivory Lee Young Jr. Since then, he has served on the Atlanta School Board for several years, and now he's back once again vying for the District 3 council seat after losing to Councilman Antonio Brown in a 2019 special election. So I'm excited to speak with him. I have a lot I want to talk to him about. So coming right up is our interview with District 3 City Council candidate Byron Amos. Stay tuned. All right, so I am joined by Byron Amos. Mr. Amos is a candidate for City Council in District 3 this year. Mr. Amos, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you and also your listeners, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. So I want to start with your background. Of course, you've been in politics for a while now, but I want to know, what kind of inspired you to hop into public service? Because you ran for this seat back in 2001, am I correct?
2001 was my very first election.
First time. So you're not new to this. So what inspired to actually take that jump into politics?
You know, it's ironic. You always talk about how people grow into things. Yeah. I was SGA president of my 5th grade class. Bethune Elementary, then went to Kennedy, SGA president, then SGA vice president at Washington High.
Wow.
Washington. To be a servant leader has always been, I guess, in my blood. Former Vine City Civic Association chairperson, former NPU chairperson, former school board member, elected in 2011. Here's a perfect opportunity to take all that knowledge I have learned, the things that I have come to know from my community and actually learn from others speaking to them in the community, to actually, I guess, return of investment. It's time to put someone in this seat that knows the community, that has the experience, but most importantly, has the wisdom of working with other elected officials to get things done.
Yeah. Being that you've been a part of District 3 and in the community for so long, has the district changed, or is it still the same as it was in 2001, in your view?
The district has definitely changed.
Yeah.
It has been gentrified to a point, and I'm one of the ones who look at gentrification in a different way. Controlled gentrification is good because everyone deserves quality neighborhoods, some place for them to live, some place for them to raise their family like I have done, some place for quality stores and quality places to shop. That gentrification is good.
Right.
It's the bad gentrification. When you're working with a working class neighborhood whose medium income is probably about $25 a year, how can you continuously produce housing at $400,000, $300,000? So that is the change that I have seen.
Yeah.
Have seen a lot of families move from the neighborhood, single family home families as well as multifamily home families. But there's been some bright spots as well. Everyone talk about Cook Park. So that is a bright spot.
Yeah.
What I was able to do on the Atlanta Board of Education when we created Hollis Innovation Academy, that is a bright spot. Then we have several other parks, Boone Parks, Katherine Johnson's Park. Then there's some affordable housing projects that's being done as well throughout the community. So there's a constant tug of war of good and bad that is taken. But the neighborhood has definitely changed. But I think it's really on, I guess, the up spiral now. Yes.
I definitely want to come back to your time on the school board, but for now, can you please tell our listeners where District 3 is as it relates to the city?
Definitely. So a lot of people like to say the west side of Atlanta.
Right.
But it's a little bit more than that. So right now we have Home Park and Atlantic Station, Vine City, English Avenue, Urban Villa, Washington Park, Harvell Homes. I think I'm missing somebody. I think that's it.
Got them all.
I hear about it. Once they hear your podcast, they gonna
you
call
missed
me.
this.
Right.
So in your eyes, what are some of the biggest issues facing your district that you'd be looking to tackle as their city council representative?
Well, of course, everyone talks about crime.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about crime. So definitely crime. But, we have to realize we can't arrest our way out of this issue as well. But also we need officers on the street that can respond to situations.
Yes.
So some of the things I talked about was increasing the police budget. And I know that'd probably be a sound bite from one of my opponents, but that's okay. Because what we need right now, you have to understand police service. Police services, we have one officer per beat. And that one officer goes from 911 call to 911 call. That's all they have the time to do. I would like to see 2 officers per beat. So while that person is handling the 911 calls, the other person's sole job is to do true community policing. Get to know the neighbors, get to know the children, the pastors, the business owners. And we do that for about 4 or 5 months. And then we switch roles.
Okay.
So now what you end up every quarter, every mid-year is 2 police officers that have experienced true community service. You have a chance to interact with a police officer before it's the worst day of your life that you dial 911. So we have true community policing. But at the same time, we have to talk to our court system as well to ensure that those repeat offenders are not continuously being released back onto the streets.
Yeah.
And then we have to understand our juvenile system as well. This point system that they have before you can engage with a juvenile is ridiculous to my point. We should be able to work with our grassroots organizations who are on the ground every day to intercede, whatever you want to call it, into a young person's life before they get introduced to the game or immediately after or before they become that repeat offender.
Can you explain that point system for our listeners? Because I'm not even familiar.
Well, the point system is a juvenile have to have so many points before they can be introduced into not the penal system, but the juvenile justice system. And I really trying to remember what the points, I think it's 12 points, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. But definitely there's a point system that they have to add up so many points.
Kind of like warnings.
Yeah, warnings.
Okay.
And then, so the only recourse that officer have is to take the child back home to the parent. And so that solves nothing.
Right.
It's no interjection or intercedence at all.
Right.
So yes.
Okay. So crime for sure. What are some other issues you're looking to address?
So definitely. So I have designed this thing called neighborhood identification and preservation.
Okay.
For some reason, single family neighborhoods are under attack in the city of Atlanta. They want to come in and zone for more density. They want to be able to build multifamily housing. So I, as a property owner, as a single family resident owner in the city of Atlanta, I bought my house because of the neighborhood and the fabric that it provided. I did not buy a house for the city to come in 5 years later and decide to give a developer the right to build a multifamily house next to me or multifamily development next to me. And then there are also neighborhoods that are being swallowed up. If you look at our neighborhood of Home Park, which is single family residential, between Georgia Tech and Atlantic Station, they're being swallowed up.
Right.
So we must begin to understand that District 3 is comprised of single-family, historic, culturally single-family neighborhoods that need to be protected and identified.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you were talking about with single-family housing and the zoning changes that I think Councilman Faroki and I think some other councilmen are trying to push through with building more small apartments, more duplexes, more triplexes. Do you think that changes the neighborhood, and does it affect it in a negative or positive way?
Well, it's ironic because it's 2 conversations that are taking place there. And when you talk about Vine City, and I talk about Vine City, that's where I'm born and raised, still live. Wow. But when you talk about District 3, period, there are single-family neighborhoods that include multifamily residential apartments and things of that nature. So that is always good because that is the fabric of the neighborhood. But it's 2 things that really, I guess, upset me about this legislation.
Right.
One, you're only talking about R4 and R5, and that is a specific destination of the zoning.
So is that Vine City specifically?
No, throughout the city.
Oh, okay.
So zoning goes from R1, R2 up to R5, and all of it speaks to the lot size.
Oh, okay.
So this legislation doesn't speak to R1 and R2, which are bigger lots.
Okay.
And this is for the additional dwelling. So let me back up. In this legislation, there's 4 or 5 pieces of legislation that really should have been broken out, and introduced individually.
Right.
Now council is beginning to break them down.
Okay.
So when we talk about the rezoning of single lots and where the neighborhood, the biggest thing that really got me upset is they mentioned around mass transit station.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about Vine City train station, Ashby Street train station, Westlake train station, Hightower train station, which sits all in District 3, you're talking about rezoning the majority of my district to allow for more density.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the biggest thing is they always end their presentation with, this will bring about more affordability. No, it will not. You cannot guarantee that. Only thing you're guaranteeing through this zoning is the option for a developer to build more density, more height, but you're not guaranteeing that they cannot charge whatever they want to charge for. Just because there are more
apartments don't mean they'll be affordable.
Exactly.
Because you talked about earlier the gentrification that's happened in District 3, and that, average income in that district is maybe $30,000, and
if that high.
If that, and then the houses are going for $300,000, $400,000. So obviously, it would seem to me that people are going to end up, especially with big tech companies like Microsoft coming in to your district, people are getting pushed out. So what is the answer to that if it's not building more density?
Well, the answer to that is what I'm calling neighborhood-friendly zoning, but more importantly, affordable neighborhoods, just not affordable housing. So what I mean by affordable neighborhood is I believe there should be a place for people to stay anywhere in this city that they desire, just not in certain locations or certain neighborhoods.
Okay.
So yes, there is a need for density and height. But that doesn't bring about true affordability. So let's talk about affordability, because there's several conversations to take place.
Yeah.
First, it needs to take place on the federal level, because HUD is the one who produced the formula for the AMI, average median income, that we always talk about, the percentages of things being afforded. Right now, that formula includes the city of Atlanta, Cherokee County, Alpharetta,
Metro Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Right.
So until we get a formula that speaks to city of Atlanta, to talk about true affordability, that conversation can't take place.
Right.
Then we must take a conversation on the state level. Right now, Georgia is one of the only states that don't do rent control. So a person and landlord can charge whatever amount of rent that they want to. And then we talk about on a local level. Local level, I think, is more important because it's 2 price points. One price point is to bring that product to market, which include impact fees, sewage connection fees, tree removal fees. All of these things the city is charging developers that goes into the overall price of the product. Now we want to offer it to, the consumer.
Right.
In which those are things I think the city can really look at. And if we reduce the overall construction costs of the product, then we come to market with a better price that people may be able to afford a little bit better.
Yeah.
So if we are really serious in this city about doing some type of affordable housing, I think the city needs to step up and lead by example and begin to redevelop the land that we already own.
Gotcha. Going back to your point about affordable neighborhoods, in District 3, does that exist right now in District 3? And if it doesn't, where exactly do you see that growing?
So if they're in my opinion, it's not an affordable neighborhood in District 3 as we stand.
Okay.
And that's on 2 levels. For the people that are trying to move into and for the people that currently own.
Okay.
Because as I said, most of our neighborhoods are historically owned by our senior citizens. So right now, because of those facts and because of just the hyperinflation of the prices of housing, there's not an affordable neighborhood in the district, and those that are there that already own is like I said, it's a predatory nature to where people are offering, all type of reverse mortgages. We will fix your house for this amount with a huge balloon payment at the end.
All right.
So until we create a system that allow all people the opportunity to live in whatever neighborhood that they desire, I think we'll forever be faced with this issue.
Yeah. Do you see a particular neighborhood that could be an affordable neighborhood in District 3?
Right now, all of them in District 3. And the reason I say all of them, it's in contrary to what I just said, because all of my neighborhoods still have good housing stock.
Okay.
They're still housing, or they're still vacant lots that houses can be built on. So until we decide to speak to property owners, you say, look, you've been holding on to this lot for 30 years. It's time to do something with it. Right. Until we decide to speak to, the dilapidated homeowner and fix our code enforcement system. There's some things, and I truly believe in leadership. There are some things that the city of Atlanta can begin to do to change the future of our city and the future of our residents, but we just need to step up and do it.
Gotcha. Speaking of city plans, I want to ask you about the recent vote by council to approve the $90 million police and fire training facility. What did you think of that plan and the vote and how everything was executed? Well,
first of all, thank you for calling it the police and fire training facility.
Right.
Because a lot of people tried to, I guess, incite some type of feeling by calling it Cop City or the police training facility. But as a graduate member of the Citizens Police Academy and the Atlanta Citizens Fire Academy, I have a little bit better insight about our training of our fire personnel and our police personnel. Okay. And then also corrections. Right. People don't understand corrections will be trained over there as well. So if I was on council, I would have voted for it. Okay. I would have voted for it because it definitely needed. Our firemen, our fire people, because they're firemen and firewomen. Right. So our fire people was training in an old school. It was an old school that was dilapidated when the school system gave it to them 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's been years.
So of course it was old school then. It's definitely an older school now. And then basically the same thing with the police academy as well. So people talk about the size of it. It's bigger than this place or it's bigger than that place. Right now we cannot certify drivers for our fire apparatus because we don't have a training facility. And people need to know that. And then when the fire service began to suffer in major cities, insurance companies began to look at the insurance policies in those cities and began to raise the quotes and the premiums because they feel as if the product they're insuring cannot be protected because the fire service is at a minimum. Right. So it's a domino effect not being able to train our people. So we're talking about the police. Defund the police, reimagine the police, whatever you call it. But every proposal called for additional training. If we don't have a training facility, how are we going to train them? Okay. So I would have supported it, but I will also say the rollout, the public engagement was horrible. Yeah. Absolutely horrible. Yeah. And I think, we as elected officials should have stopped the process. Did a little bit more engagement to ensure that all sides were at least heard. There may not have been an opportunity to do something different, but at least you give the opportunity for people to be heard in the process. Yeah.
I want to go back to the Atlanta School Board since you actually served on the board for 7 years. I've been able to speak with a couple of school board candidates this year, and I learned a lot. I didn't realize the school board received 50% of all city property taxes, which comes up to about $900 million a year. So do you think the budget that the school board has is being allocated properly, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no.
No.
And and the reason I say no, because so first of all, yes, you're right. It's 51 cents of every dollar of property taxes the school system gets. And after we roll in all the grants, all the federal money, the smallest budget I seen when I was on the school board was $1.2 billion.
Wow.
So let's keep it in business sense. $1.2 billion. And the return of investment that we was giving you at that time was a 52% graduation rate.
All right.
So, if you was investing in a company, you'd be upset too.
Yeah.
So the reason I say it has not been allocated, although I have voted for every budget after strenuous conversations, is that there are more that we can do. And we start making the right steps.
Yeah.
Before I left the board, I was actually leading the conversation around equity. So right after I left, we was able to pass the equity policy that actually for the first time looked as race and gender as a barrier to education.
Yeah.
As it is socioeconomic conditions as well. But most people say, if you want to see the things I care about, show me your budget. So there are a lot of things I think in which we could have done differently on that board, in which we started to move in the right way, that would have shown people that we was really interested in moving forward.
Yeah. I actually asked that question as it relates to public safety, because we see so much of the crime, the aggravated assault, the carjackings are being done by teenagers, children, 15 to 16 years old. And we know if we are able to give children a proper outlet, somewhere to go after school, to be and do something productive, that could help with the crime rate. So I was asking because you think the school board could do more with that $1.2 billion budget to allow space and opportunity for our youth to be more involved in something positive.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And that was always an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
The 1.2 was when I was there. I guarantee it's a little bit larger now.
Oh, wow.
With CARES Act and everything else that has come in.
Yeah.
But definitely the pandemic, and we can't blame everything on the pandemic, because we was going in this spiral before the pandemic.
Right.
But definitely there are some models that we was looking at, some from up north that allow schools to stay open. So the community schools model that was talked about for the last several years in the state of Georgia is a perfect example. But we have to understand the school system is also tied by a lot of laws that are pushed down from the state level as well.
So much they can do.
Correct. But locally, we still have the control of when our buildings open and when our building close. And like you say, using some of that money to ensure that our buildings are open to 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That gives us the opportunities, such as we talked about with Hollis. Children are not doing homework. They're not being prepared for the next day at home. Right. So what would happen if we did leave the school open a little later for homework courses? Yeah. So that's what I talk about, a good marriage between the city of Atlanta and Atlanta Public Schools.
Yeah.
Because there are things that are affecting education in this system, that in the city, that education has no control over.
Right.
So when a child leaves school, the next day only time that child eats is when it comes back to school. That is another issue that education don't control.
That's real. Yeah.
When a child is walking to school and has to walk past dope house, prostitution, guns, education can't control that. Right. That's a city of Atlanta, Fulton County issue, state issue.
Right.
So everybody needs to play a part in ensuring that our children are properly educated, and that's outside and inside of the classroom as well.
Gotcha. So you resigned from the school board, what was that, 2019, in order to run for city council in the special election. Did you receive any backlash from that? I'm not sure about how things work in political circles, but is that kind of like a drawback to resign in a position to run for another?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So some people felt as if I left or abandoned the word that they was using, my duties. I don't think so, of course, because I did it.
Right.
But politically, no, I don't think so. But from the constituents, yes.
You did. Okay.
Because they voted for you for 4 years. And I did too, and left. There were some that were upset about some of the decisions that I made on the school board, and it definitely reflected their vote for city council. But I am one who believes that the seat belongs to nobody forever.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to be able to do a lot on the Atlanta Board of Education.
Would you do the same thing again if you could replay it back, or would you finish the term?
It's
or have you even thought about it? Yeah.
I really haven't thought about it because the seat was vacated by a good friend of mine, Ivory Young, passing.
Yeah, he passed.
So that is a very unusual circumstance.
Yeah.
So I really haven't thought about it. I definitely believe that I could have offered more to the district and done more for the district, and that's why I'm still in the race now.
Right.
But yeah, like I say, the seat, belongs to no one for long. I was able to do it. I was there for 7 years. We was able to do some great things.
Yeah.
So yes.
Awesome. So speaking of that, you ran against Antonio Brown, who's now city council member running for mayor. What do you think of the leadership that he's been able to provide for the past year and a half, 2 years?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's one for me to answer.
Okay.
Of course, I think that he could have done more.
Okay.
But, we was in the race together. So, of course, I'm going to think that. But I do say for the time that he stepped in, he was able to do some things in a difficult time.
Yeah.
The district has to answer that question.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say.
Last question. There are a lot of new contenders in this race for District 3. I would say that you would, out of all of them, you definitely have the most experience. Why should constituents District 3 vote for you over some of the new contenders coming along?
Well, at this particular day and age, in the time that we are in the city of Atlanta, wisdom is very important. Yeah. Knowledge is very important. Yeah. So I have, like I said, the only candidate that has been elected before that has the experience of working with other elected officials on an elected body, but also being able to move the district forward. I think I have the better plan. I think I have the better knowledge and understanding of what we're suffering from. And then just being able to put all of that together, understanding that a lot of problems we face goes beyond City Hall. So being able to build those coalitions to get things done, I have done it. I'm doing it now, and hopefully as city council member, I will be able to continuously do it in my district.
Awesome, exactly. So, Mr. Amos, I want to thank you for coming through. Before I let you go, can you please tell our listeners where they can keep up with your campaign?
So it's easy. ByronAmos.com, Twitter @ByronAmos, Instagram, Facebook, Byron Amos. So if you're looking for me,
you can find them.
You can definitely find me.
Yeah, and I'll leave those links in the description. Mr. Amos, I definitely appreciate you taking the time. It's a great conversation.
Thanks, sir, very much.
All right, have a good one.